Hello everybody, how are you going? Welcome to a Kurg's Gazette video, or at least an in a nutshell video, this one being the Fermi paradox. Where are all the aliens? Now, that does make sense because mathematically, when you have infinite, there should be more than one, but we don't see any stars in the sky, so are we alone or not?
Are we the only living things in the entire universe? The observable universe is about 90 billion light-years in diameter.
Ridiculous.
There are at least 100 billion galaxies, each with 100 to 1,000 billion stars. Recently, we've learned that planets are very common too.
Yes.
And there are probably trillions and trillions of habitable planets in the universe, which means there should be lots of opportunity for life to develop and exist, right? But where is it? Shouldn't the universe be teeming with spaceships? Let's take a step back.
Oh, well, I guess first of all, like they were saying, there are trillions of not even just planets, but trillions of supposedly habitable planets. And the fact is, when you have that many, yes, it could be one in a quadrillion if there are trillions and we just happen to be the one. But at the same time, surely if it's habitable, we aren't that unique to the degree that there's no evidence of any life ever being there, or maybe even just some life eventually being there in another billion or so years, whatever it is. It just seems impossible for it to not be the case. But then, like they said, why isn't it just teeming? Yes, space is just ridiculously big. Like they said, 90 billion light years of observable universe, let alone the entire rest of it that we will never see. But then I guess, to be fair, I have also heard my fair share of reasons as to why we don't see scars in the stars in the sky, and that's just because if you get too big, you're doomed to fail.
Even if there are alien civilizations in other galaxies, there's no way we'll ever know about them. Basically, everything outside of our direct galactic neighborhood, the so-called local group, is pretty much out of our reach forever because of the expansion of the universe. Even if we had really fast spaceships, it would literally take billions of years to reach these places, traveling through the emptiest areas in the universe. So let's focus on the Milky Way. The Milky Way is our home galaxy. It consists of up to 400 billion stars. That's a lot of stars. Counting one per second, it would take you 100 lifetimes to count them all. There are about 20 billion Sun-like stars in the Milky Way, and estimates suggest that a fifth of them have an Earth-sized planet in its habitable zone, the area with conditions that enable life to exist.
A fifth, so there is 4 billion out there. 4 billion possible habitable planets in just the solar system itself, just in the Milky Way, not the solar system, in the Milky Way themselves, let alone when you do then expand to even bigger galaxies like Andromeda and all the others out there. The numbers, the numbers, Mason, the numbers just seem to say that there has to be, but it doesn't mean, like they said, that we'll ever find them. But what if they are just a billion years of advance and they can find us instead? That might be a bit of a problem very, very quickly. Like people have said, I don't know if we want to find out that there are some people out there, in whatever form they are, but just to be able to prove it one way or another once and for all would be groundbreaking. To be fair, if we come back to them talking about traveling between galaxies, the entire universe would then even just open up exponentially more. I mean, you are talking about greater and greater distances, and it just becomes ridiculous. 90 billion light years, crazy amounts of time and space. But if you do manage to kind of open up that vast gap, which isn't anything that we can really even conceptualize at the moment, there's no way you can travel that much distance in any kind of realistic human anything lifetime. You just have to kind of be somehow skipping the space, skipping the time, either through some mixture of relative time travel and just speed travel, whether that be wormholes and all these kind of things. There are so many different ways that we could kind of think about wanting to do such travel, but it's actually doing it that's always going to be the hard part. And so I guess that is why when people do paint with very broad strokes, asking questions like, are we alone out there? The answer is kind of like a yes-no situation, where it's probably technically no, but realistically, considering we haven't seen anything in the Milky Way, it could be a yes.
If only 0.1% of those planets harbored life, there would be 1 million planets with life in the Milky Way.
That's ridiculous.
But wait, there's more. The Milky Way is about 13 billion years old. In the beginning, it would not have been a good place for life because things exploded a lot. But after 1 to 2 billion years, the first habitable planets were born. Earth is only 4 billion years old, so there have probably been trillions of chances for life to develop on other planets in the past. If only a single one of them had developed into a space-traveling super-civilization, we would have noticed by now.
You would think so. The only thing that ever does come to mind is the fact that maybe to be able to travel the vast distances, they aren't humanoid or anything sized objects, like they're more bacterium sized to that degree, and so everything is just absolutely miniaturized, so you're dealing with a lot less mass. But then that's basically impossible to pick up on, like the vastness of space. That's the only thing that I have heard, and I do think going, well, maybe. Like, out of everything, considering we haven't seen anything yet, that would be the only way that we haven't seen it. But like I said, in the Milky Way, we do see and study a lot of the Milky Way, especially with things like James Webb and Hubble and just Parkes radar even. There's so much stuff going on that we do look up and go, ooh, what's there? Oh, nothing. Oh, what's that? No, nothing. Oh, no, nothing again. Like, it's just constantly dead ends. And so then when we hear numbers like this, it's just ridiculous.
There have probably been trillions of chances for life to develop on other planets.
Trillions of chances. How has there been trillions of chances? I mean, yes, there's probably been some successful and then unsuccessful. Like, they got somewhere and then they got hit by an asteroid and then that wiped out everything. Or the temperature rose too much, the atmosphere just collected too much, and then the entire planet just dropped off the face of the universe from a bioorganics point of view. Whatever it may be, it could be trillions. But how are we that unique? Surely we're not that unique. We're very unique, but that unique? To be fair, we could be unique enough to the fact that we are the first one that has got anywhere remotely this far, billions of years of development, not just 100 years, 50 million years and stopped. If we're getting this far and then continuing on, that does make a massive difference, and perhaps we could be the first in our local area. I wouldn't even want to say that we are the first in general, but maybe just that would be a more realistic point of view, because like he was saying, we are in some regards 4 billion years ahead of what could be a perfect potential planet that's just now starting its flame.
If only a single one of them had developed into a space-traveling super-civilization, we would have noticed by now. What would such a civilization look like? There are 3 categories. A Type 1 civilization would be able to access the whole energy available on its planet. In case you're wondering, we're currently around 0.73 on the scale, and we should reach Type 1 sometime in the next couple of hundred years.
Okay, I was wondering what his projection was going to be, and to be fair, in some regards, I mean, to harness all the energy on the planet, it's once again an exponential thing, but I kind of feel as though he's being a little bit conservative with his entire estimates. I mean, it depends on what degree you're saying can and is harnessing, because some things you might just go, what's the point in harnessing someone going, and like, that's energy. Did you harness it? No, that's not what they're talking about, of course, but realistically, I'm sure if you're just going basically the solar input to the entire planet and geothermal output of the entire planet, mixed in with a bit of wind and tidal, but it's completely dwarfed by the other two, so it's not really in contention, and that's how we're only at a 0.73. Some put it lower, some put it higher somehow, and of course, if we're just continuing on and all the way up to fusion energy, we could get pretty far pretty quickly, and that's also coming along pretty quickly, and that's why I think he's being a little bit conservative. Of course, then things get very, very crazy as soon as you start going to Type 2 and Type 3, and that's where it's a long way away, but maybe as things do become exponential, that then does enable you to be traveling, or I guess it forces you to be traveling much, much greater distances, much, much faster. And something that I also do wonder is, where is the crossover between Type 1 and Type 2? As I feel as though you can start edging into Type 2 before you are fully Type 1, let's just say you're mining asteroids for their resources that they're saying here, or even their renewables, whatever you can possibly get out of them, and that's more of a Type 2, or if that's definitely off-planetary, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've just absolutely harnessed fusion energy and you're just tapping into the geothermals and everything like that. Like, where's the mix there?
We're currently around 0.73 on the scale, and we should reach Type 1 sometime in the next couple of hundred years. Type 2 would be a civilization capable of harnessing all of the energy of its home star. This would require some serious science fiction, but it is doable in principle. Concepts like the Dyson sphere, a giant complex surrounding the sun, would be conceivable.
Yep. Wait, what did I say? There was a little bit of a thing. This is absolutely not how this would work. Right. I guess at least they're being transparent about the entire thing and not just saying that solar powered whatever machines are just going and shutting down the entire sun. To be fair, I also hope that they never actually do this, as we would all become so pale and so absolutely distraught being devoid of sunlight, like unless they're just leaving a little beam that somehow just travels around Earth, but then you're just roasting or freezing all the other planets as well. I hope that they never do this to the sun. You know, they can do this to stars if they develop or track down the right guy that doesn't really carry any problems with it, but just never do this to the sun. Maybe a little bit, maybe on the poles, because it's not wherever you want to be doing it, but just not in the band of any planets, please. Again though, this kind of thing would just unlock such ridiculous amounts of energy that we wouldn't know what to do with it. Like, if we had that much energy today, we wouldn't know what to do with it. There is no way that we could possibly transport, harness, utilize anything like that to that degree. With only, 7 billion people? You would need hundreds of trillions of people to be able to use that much energy in a day. Like, there's no way. If you're traveling long distances, large energy, large mass things, sure, but there is no way that we would ever require that much energy for what we're doing now. Like, you're not charging just standard phones using the sun, not to that degree.
But it is doable in principle. Concepts like the Dyson sphere, a giant complex surrounding the sun, would be conceivable. Type 3 is a civilization that basically controls its whole galaxy and its energy. An alien race this advanced would probably be godlike to us. But why should we be able to see such an alien civilization in the first place? If we were to build generation spaceships that could sustain a population for around 1,000 years, we could colonize the whole galaxy in 2 million years. Sounds like a long time, but remember, the Milky Way is huge. So if it takes a couple of million years to colonize the entire galaxy, and there are possibly millions, if not billions, of planets that sustain life in the Milky Way, and these other life forms have had considerably more time than we've had, then where are all the aliens?
There's no reason to say that they have considerably more time than we have, you know? They could just be, 50 years behind us, 500 million years behind us, even, 500,000 years? It's really not that long when they're talking about millions of years to colonize the entire galaxy. I mean, yes, it's 2 million to go to our own, but then if you're looking further out, I just don't feel as though I can just write off the Milky Way to that degree. I mean, I definitely agree that there should be stars in the sky from all this activity if there was activity, but what if there's not activity? Yes, they may have had more time, but there's no reason to believe that they developed just as quickly, and then there's also no reason to say that they have developed to where we are and beyond at all. They could just be below us, and that's fine, but that doesn't necessarily answer the question as to, is there life out there at all? Is there advanced life, like super advanced life out there? Possibly not from what we can see, but is there life out there? Perhaps, probably.
This is the Fermi paradox, and nobody has an answer to it.
Yes.
But we do have some ideas. Let's talk about filters. A filter in this context represents a barrier that is really hard for life to overcome. They come in various degrees of scary. 1. There are great filters, and we have passed them. Maybe it is way harder for complex life to develop than we think. The process allowing life to begin hasn't yet been completely figured out, and the conditions required may be really complicated. Maybe in the past, the universe was way more hostile, and only recently have things cooled down to make complex life possible. This would also mean that we may be unique, or at least one of the first, if not the first, civilization in the entire universe.
I don't know about the entire universe, but I definitely at least finally do agree with them on some department. I mean, I love all their videos, but I'm just playing devil's advocate to some degree, but it just feels like all the numbers that they're spouting off just make you think and go, surely not. Surely that's just not possible. But then, like they're saying here, I don't think that we think that life is more complicated than it is. We know how pretty unique and ridiculously difficult it is. Otherwise, you would just see them everywhere. If there are trillions, you would be, oh yeah, there's Bill and Fred and John from Mars and everywhere else. Like, if it was that simple. Even just coming back to these great filters that they are talking about, I mean, yes, we obviously survived ours, be it multiple asteroid attacks, if you want to call them that, and other warmings and coolings and everything like that. But there's no reason to be saying that every other planet that could have, or once did, was actually able to get through all of these great filters. Like, let's say the moon hit a couple of billion years later. That big bold rock just came slamming down to Earth just a little bit later. They were running 5 minutes late, so to say. It would have been the end. We would not be here. Like, it would have been that simple.
This would also mean that we may be unique, or at least one of the first, if not the first, civilization in the entire universe. 2. There are great filters, and they are ahead of us.
Yeah.
This one would be really, really bad. Maybe life on our level exists everywhere in the universe, but it gets destroyed when it reaches a certain point, a point that lies ahead of us.
Yes.
For example, awesome future technology exists, but when activated, it destroys the planet. The last words of every advanced civilization would be, "This new device will solve all of our problems once I push this button." If this is true,
That would be so sad. I mean, I guess that's kind of what people are afraid of with so many technologies on a human scale, not even on a planetary scale, like the end of the planet, but you go, what if the Terminators come? What if the fusion generation just explodes and it becomes a black hole? Not that that's a thing, but there is a spectrum on which I can understand why people might be afraid of a semi-realistic, possible, very far future where we do get to the final filter, the graveyard of life, and no one ever goes past it. Because as soon as everyone just turns against each other, using weapons that are a little bit more hot war than cold war, you do have the end of the world. To be fair though, that right there could be our most unique trait of all. Not that we have first in the universe, and not that we're the millionth, not that we're alone or not or anything like that, but when we get to our final filter, or the final filter in our relative spectrum of things, that we actually get past it, that we actually don't push the big red button or anything like that and just be the extra 1% of the 1%.
the last words of every advanced civilization would be, "This new device will solve all of our problems once I push this button." If this is true, then we are closer to the end than the beginning of human existence. Or maybe there is an ancient Type 3 civilization that monitors the universe, and once a civilization is advanced enough, it gets eliminated in an instant. Maybe there is something out
That's a little bit of a... I haven't heard that one before, and I don't think that I particularly like it, as I feel as though that is one of the most realistic ones that they have said here today. I mean, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but at the same time, a Type 3 civilization kind of gets to do it at once. It has so much energy and resources under its control that it's pretty much, like they said, a god power. And so it's not going to be wanting any challenges to that power. Realistically, it's going to want to continue to just operate in its own path. And so if it goes, this one's not a threat, I guess we'll just continue to just not even bother about it. But then if you kind of pop up on their radar all of a sudden, then you might have a couple of problems and they might want to stamp you out a little bit earlier than you were ready for. Otherwise though, would you see them if they are almost like this god level? Then I don't know. Would we even know what to look for if we were trying to cast our net to observe these Type 3 civilizations? I mean, they are honestly so far in advance of anything that we can even fathom that surely, I mean, that we already know that there is stuff out there that we can't see, that we can kind of mathematically prove exists, let alone what about all the stuff that we can't see? I mean, even just look at Interstellar or something like that. I mean, that's a, what do they call them? A level 5, a Type 5 civilization, 5-dimensional civilization that was talking to the humans. We didn't know that that's black holes. That could be semi-realistic. We don't know.
Or maybe there is an ancient Type 3 civilization that monitors the universe, and once a civilization is advanced enough, it gets eliminated in an instant.
Just that
Maybe
easy.
there is something out there that it would be better not to discover. There is no way for us to know. One final thought, maybe we're alone. Right now, we have no evidence that there's any life besides us. Nothing. The universe appears to be empty and dead. No one sending us messages, no one answering our calls. We may be completely alone, trapped on a tiny moist mud ball in an eternal universe. Does that thought scare you? If it does, you're having the correct emotional reaction. If we let life on this planet die, perhaps there will be no life left in the universe. Life will be gone, maybe forever. If this is the case, we just have to venture to the stars and become the first Type 3 civilization to keep the delicate flame of life existing and to spread it until the universe breathes its final breath and vanishes into oblivion. The universe is too beautiful not to be experienced by someone.
It's just that easy, you know, we just have to become a Type 3. I mean, he's clearly not saying that, but it is funny to hear, like, well, I guess then it's all up to us, and I don't think that you really want to be leaving that just solely to us. I mean, I guess technically eventually would get there if you looked at a curved graph, but that would take some serious time and planning to be able to get all the way to a Type 3. There is a reason that it takes millions of years to explore your own galaxy, and then to expand beyond that becomes even more just ridiculous. So to be saying that we are alone in our own solar system, sure, the Milky Way, I guess we don't have any evidence of it, and so we can say no, but then to be expanding beyond that and just be going all the way to the observable universe and then all the way even further beyond, I just don't see how you could possibly think no. Like, the numbers are there, that there's no way that, yes, we've gone through the great filters, and yes, we've had asteroids and heats and cooling and not pushing buttons and everything like that. But with the numbers just say that surely there has to be more. And so, Fermi paradox or not, it doesn't mean that there isn't anything. There may not be level 3s, there may not even be level 2s yet, but surely there's other things that are like us, just chilling below level 1.